C5 Insight is a Microsoft partner that plans, builds, and supports solutions in Dynamics 365, Teams, SharePoint, and the Power Platform. Contact us to modernize your business today.
Welcome. This is actually a 3-webinar day at C5 Insight. So this is number 1. We're going to be talking about better meetings, which seems weird, but it's actually a super exciting topic for me, and I'll talk about why as we get into it. Then we're going to talk about standard operating procedures, another boring sounding but exciting transformative topic. And then at the end of the day, we're going to close out with 7 habits of CRM success and recovery, because over 70% of our clients come to us after having a failed project and they need to get back on track. So we're going to disclose some of the secrets that we've found for successful CRM implementation in the 3rd webinar. So getting started with this one today. Again, bionic team meetings with Dynamics 365 and Microsoft 365. We're going to talk about how to create better meetings within your organization. And some of these will just be practical business tips that don't have anything to do with technology. But we're not going to go too far with those, because this session is about how to use all the tools available to you if you're using Microsoft 365, SharePoint, Teams, all of those things, or Dynamics 365, sales, customer service, and all of those sorts of things. So let's dive in to the very beginning of this, and that is this idea that meetings are actually a really, really cool and amazing part of business life, or maybe not so much, right? I mean, no one ever says, I'm staying with this organization because we're awesome at meetings, and I look forward to meetings all the time. But that's kind of sad that nobody feels good about meetings in today's modern workplace often, because in our experience, meetings done well are really the heart. They're the engine of an effective business, right? So those routine meetings that are scheduled and come up weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever the cadence is, as well as those ad hoc meetings that need to happen sometimes, or maybe more project-oriented meetings where maybe there's not quite the same cadence there. But what happens with these meetings oftentimes is the appropriate processes are not followed, right? So instead of those great outputs I showed on the previous slide, we wind up with too many meetings, showing up to meetings that I'm not supposed to be a part of, showing up to meetings where there's no agenda, showing up to meetings where they're a completely creative thing every time, which might be more exciting and energizing, but you don't actually solve real problems. What you do doesn't stick, right? How many of you have been in a meeting where at some point you go, we're talking about this issue. Didn't we solve this issue already? Didn't we talk about this in some other meeting at some other time? And what did we say then? Where are our notes? Let's go try to find that, right? And it's because we don't have a good structured way of doing meetings that we waste a ton of time in our meetings. And we wind up with not only wasted time, but when we're not doing a good job with our routine meetings, then we wind up creating a bunch of ad hoc meetings and one-on-one meetings and hallway conversations and quick Teams chats and those kinds of things, which are very interruptive or disruptive to the workflow for people. So we do a bad job in our routine meetings. That means we're creating more non-routine ad hoc meetings, and we're really frustrating everybody in the process. So there's a place for all these types of meetings, but when you do them well, you don't need as many because you're doing them right. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Excuse me, this idea of how do we use these great tools to do meetings better than we've ever done them before. And by the way, I think this is exciting because when you think about the amount of hours you spend in meetings, if you can even take a small step forward in this, you can absolutely transform your business. So I'm not saying going from really, really frustrating meetings to absolutely perfect meetings immediately. I'm saying small incremental steps, small improvements here can have a huge impact on your business because they're leveraged across every single meeting and every single person that has to attend those meetings, which is every single person in your organization. So a few small improvements here might actually do more to transform your business than some of the other exciting technical things that we're all excited about. For example, we talk a ton about AI. We're big fans of ChatGPT and Copilot by Microsoft at C5 Insight for sure. But I can tell you, those might be able to transform a business, but they actually may not transform your business as much as just doing a meeting makeover would transform your business if you're not doing that right. So enough about that. Let's dive in. Allison already did a great job of introducing me, but for those of you who didn't hear or a little more information, my name is Jeff Abels. I run C5 Insight, or more like the people that work at C5 Insight kind of run me, and I've got some of my great colleagues along with me today. So I definitely encourage you to use the Q&A if you want to ask any questions, because not only can we go through those at the end of today's session, but there are people monitoring it, and they can help to answer some of those questions. And I can tell you, some of the people here are the brains behind what I'm presenting to you today. I'm just the front man who kind of takes all the information and gets to present it to you guys. A lot of the brains behind the scene are here, and I'm only going to scratch the tip of the iceberg today. So dive in, ask questions, go deeper if you want to. There's my little bio there about C5 Insight. We're about customer and employee engagement. We're a Microsoft shop. We help people select and implement Microsoft software to do the things I'm going to talk about today. Some of the things are very basic, just how to do simple things in business better. Some of those are very sophisticated business process automations that we do for some of our clients. And on the right-hand side of this, there's my why. There's my family, my little clan gathered around the camera there. My wife of 35 years, our 2 daughters, our 2 sons-in-law, and our 2 grandchildren, and I think our pup might have her nose in that picture somewhere. She's also there below it. Pastimes that June and I like are riding a motorcycle together, and any kind of fine spirit, wine and bourbon in particular, are things we find super enjoyable. Love to compare notes with you on either of those things if you're ever interested. Okay, so let's talk about 5 habits for effective meetings before we dive in, because meetings are about business, yes, but meetings are really about bringing people together to make business work better. And at the heart of people, at the heart of every human relationships are 5 things, right? That's how do we listen to each other better, right? Not just hear, but write it in the database of our brain. How do we deeply understand where people are so we don't just hear the words, we understand the meeting, right? We understand the context. We go deeper than just listening to respond. We actually listen to try to truly understand. And then we create processes. We build connections with each other. We have better ways of engaging each other, and we know the results. So that's listen, understand, connect, and know. That's the heart of every human relationship. And in the business world, we want to do that on a more scalable basis, right? We want databases and digital technology to help us do that better without erasing how important the actual life-on-life, human-to-human relationship is. We call those 4 steps being powered by luck. Listen, understand, connect, and know. And good meetings practice this all the time. There's a 5th principle here. I'd mentioned 5, and that one is what we call good luck. And that's always connecting to your why, right? Why are we having this meeting? And usually that why connects even more deeply to why are we even here, right? Why are we in business? What are we trying to accomplish? What are our big goals and our little goals? Why are we connecting with each other to try to make something happen? Because it's either about maintenance or it's about change, right? So what are we doing within this meeting so everyone understands where we're going with it? So let me carve some specific things out of listen, understand, connect, and know, because this is our springboard for everything that we do. It's, hey, we want to help people connect better with each other. So whether we're designing a sales process, thinking about a marketing journey, or just thinking about a meeting, what does luck tell us might be things we should do with that? So when we break that apart in a little more detail and look at the anatomy of an effective meeting, there are these 7 things I want to explore together with you today, and then start connecting those to technology to help us do those better. So you can read through the list there. I'm going to go through them one item at a time and just talk about what can we do to do these things a little bit better than we are already. So these are 7 things that are the heart of a good and effective a one-off meeting or whole cadence of meetings. So the first one is this idea of standardization, doing things consistently. And I can tell you, by the way, I am bad at this because I like exciting, I like new, I don't like doing the same thing day in and day out every single day, right? But one of the things I've learned over time is cadence and predictability and templating are actually amazing things for making everybody much more efficient. So when I talk about standardization, the first thing I talk about is cadence. What meetings do you need to have a regular cadence for, right? If you're running an entire business, then you might have a cadence around, well, we have an annual planning meeting, and we have quarterly meetings where we kind of plan the quarter ahead at a little less detail than the annual meeting. And then maybe we have weekly meetings to check in and make sure that we're getting things done right? That's a very standard cadence. Or if you're a customer service team, you might have a weekly meeting cadence with your whole team to report on how things are going, and maybe you've got some other things going on with that. If you're running a project, you might have a weekly team meeting or a daily scrum meeting or whatever it is, but there's a cadence for meetings. Is there a place for ad hoc meetings? Yes, and we're gonna get to that near the end of this session. But most of your meeting time, the vast majority of your meeting time, should actually be in cadence meetings. And if you do that well, you actually have a lot fewer of those ad hoc meetings. So predictable and pre-scheduled meetings. And then those meetings should also have a template, right? You shouldn't have to reinvent the agenda every time you have one of these cadence meetings. The whole idea of a cadence meeting is we do certain things predictably every single time. So your meeting prep, much faster, right? I've gone from when I'm helping to run the company or when I'm running steering committee meetings on behalf of some of our clients, I've gone from being super creative beforehand and spending hours getting ready for a meeting to try to do something that's exciting to I can start 15 minutes beforehand, just fine tune a few things, be prepared, go into the meeting and have an incredibly value added meeting within that. So it helps with that. A common location for your templates and production agendas. I'm going to show you that in a minute, but make sure you have those somewhere where it's easy to get to them. So you're not scrambling for where is that template? Where is that thing? Where's that meeting invitation? It's a common way that you're doing things. And then one of the things I suggest that I find very valuable is instead of putting agendas in the meeting invitation, create the agenda somewhere where it's editable. We use OneNote. I find that's super helpful for this because it's easier to open and close and play with than something like a Microsoft Word document. But wherever you have it, link to that in the meeting invitation. And that way, if person XYZ who's coming to the meeting says, oh, I'd like to ask a question in this meeting, they can go there and they can put some notes in there directly with that meeting without having to ask someone else to update an agenda somewhere else for them. You can use Word templates, SharePoint news templates, or even OneNote templates for this. So let me give you a quick glimpse of how to use SharePoint to do document templates better, because this might be what you want to do. It could be PowerPoint, it could be Word. Let's take a look at those real quickly, and then we'll take a look at SharePoint. Uncomfortable silence while the movie loads for the first time.
Organizational asset libraries, also known as document templates, let you create a library of templates that everyone can access from their Office desktop applications or when adding news or pages into SharePoint. So when a user creates a new Word, Excel, or PowerPoint document, they see a new tab here with the company's templates available, and they can navigate to the template that they want to use and select it. This makes it easier for the user, but it also means the organization has more control over things like branding, compliance, and legal terms in their documents. And because document templates require the user to save a newly created file, existing documents aren't mistakenly overwritten if a user uses them as a starting point. The image templates libraries also mean that companies like Kentucky.
I'm going to stop that one there because the rest of that particular demo is a little irrelevant. But just to give you the quick case study for that, right? So if you say, hey, everybody, we want you to have a consistent template for meetings. And by the way, it's in Microsoft Word. If you go stick that somewhere in a file share or just throw it out there in SharePoint somewhere and say, there's where it is, go find it every meeting, no one's going to use it, right? What they're going to do is before the meeting, they're going to go say, well, where's the last document I used for a meeting like this? And they're going to edit that. And half the time, they're probably going to edit it without saving a new copy. So now they've just overwritten that old one that they were using before. And if you've got new things you want in the template, that's history, right? They're like 10 versions into their own thing now. They don't want to touch your template. If you put it in a template library in SharePoint like that, it's also called an organizational assets library. Then all they have to do is go into PowerPoint or go into Word and just do new. They can find that template, open it. It doesn't allow them to overwrite it. So when they go to save it, it's going to say, you got to put this somewhere else and you got to name it something else before you can save it. So a great way to save time on templates. Now, I don't have a video of this, but OneNote also has templates. They don't work quite the same way. So you can't go have it in a template library and do a new page and it browses to that like you saw in that Word experience. But you can basically create a OneNote notebook and say, whenever anyone adds a new page to this notebook, use this template when they create the page. So you can build those meeting templates directly into that particular OneNote notebook. So if you've got for example, a leadership team, and you've got a meetings OneNote notebook, create your template there, and then as soon as someone hits add to add a new page to that OneNote, they're going to get the same template. Or worst case, just train them to copy the old one, paste it as a new page, and go from there, right? Because it should be very nearby what they're already doing. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Now, some organizations also do updates that might use something like SharePoint instead. Not necessarily a meeting agenda, but something like a project status report, for example. So if you say, hey, our PMO team issues status reports every week, and they're in a consistent way that we do those. Oftentimes what happens is, again, that's Word, that's PowerPoint, that's something that's meant us to go open up. But you can create templates directly in SharePoint just for pages, such as a project management template or a weekly leadership report or something like that. And that can become your template for a meeting. Let's take a look at what that looks like.
The project management office has communicated that they want to have a standard layout for status reports that are in news feeds. So I'm going to go add a new news post again. I'm going to choose a blank one again. And one of the things they don't want is this header up at the top here. So I'm going to go click this, and let's just change this layout to a plain layout, getting rid of that. Now down here in this section, a news post is really just another page, kind of like the home page we edited earlier. I want to change the section layout to have a narrow column to the left and a wider column to the right. I want my text to be in the wider column. Just going to use the move that over here. And I want to put a picture over here. Maybe it's a screenshot of a technology project I'm working on, or maybe it's a construction project, or maybe it's some standard around red, yellow, or green for project status. Whatever it is, that's what the project management office wants. So just like that, I've created that. But what I want to do is reuse this as a template. So over here is save as draft. We can actually change this to save as template. And you can see it's been saved, but it's also telling me over here it's not been saved, conflicting messages. Why is that? I need to give it a name. So I'm going to call it status report. And now I'm going to save the template. Now, if I go back home, you'll notice no new news has been created. But if I go over here and add a new news post, there it is. I'm going to click the status report template I created. I can actually even go over here and say set it as my default, so I don't have to select it from now on. Now I'm going to create a post. I'm going to say October status report, and I will put an image in here, and again it will be a stock image, and I don't have screenshots here, so I'm just going to look for a happy user. That looks like a happy user right there, so I'll put that in there, and I'm going to go ahead and just paste my lorem ipsum in there again just to make it nice and busy, and then head back to my home page, and you can see I've got two items here in the layout that I chose.
We are actually engaged with the client right now, building a dashboard, a set of dashboards for them. Part of what they want on their dashboards is a project overview of all their active projects. They manage very large construction projects, to oversimplify a little bit. And this is coming from that. So they're kind of multi-purposing their meeting overviews too. So the project team says, here's the status of this project. They publish it there. It becomes the meeting agenda that they review. Their template's more sophisticated. They've got red, yellow, green status on there and all of that kind of stuff. But now the leadership team just sees whenever there's a new status report in there, all the top projects have one each project on the home page, and they can quickly go through those at a high level, see what they look like, click them, see the detailed report underneath, and if they want to. So giant time saver, not just for the meetings, but also for communication. And communication after the meeting and outside of the meeting is actually a really important part of the meeting itself. A couple of other quick tips on standardization. First of all, in Microsoft Teams, if you are using OneNote, one thing we do internally, and we've set up for some of our clients as well, is when you're using OneNote for your team agendas, always make sure that the most recent meeting, whether it's scheduled for the future and you've got the agenda out there, or it's the most recent one completed, is at the top of this list. And when you attach this to the team, attach a link not to this page, because then you'll open up that page however far it gets pushed down, attach the link to this meeting section. And now whenever anyone clicks that tab on that Teams channel, they're going to see the latest meeting right there. Easy for them to start modifying it, easy for them to start consuming information from it, or if they're setting up for the next meeting and you don't have a full template set up in OneNote, easy for them to go grab that last meeting, copy it, add a new page, paste it there at the top, and keep working from there. So a super simple way to do that and make it really easy for people to just always see the agenda for the next meeting without losing any of this nice history around what were the notes from the last meetings that we had. Okay, step 2 of 7 is this idea of, well, what about preparing for the meeting, right? We kind of talked about that with the meeting cadence and the templates, but there's still preparation for most meetings required. And really it falls into 2 groups. There's preparation for those who are going to participate in the meetings, and there's preparation for those who actually own the meetings, whether that's a facilitator or a leader or whoever it is. So ideally, if you set up cadence meetings correctly, the most important thing for participants to do to prepare for the meeting is just to do their job. And what I mean by that is if they're doing their job, that means they're keying information into CRM, right? They're updating customer tickets, they're tracking marketing projects, they're entering sales interactions and pipeline information and that kind of thing. And if they're doing their job and capturing information correctly, that becomes the data that's used to make the meeting more effective. Now, I'm going to give you some aids to help them along with that as well, because getting adoption to do some of those things isn't always easy. Meetings themselves, that's part of the adoption process. So another thing to do with that is in Planner or To Do, those are Microsoft tools. If you've got Microsoft 365, you have them available to you. Use those as task lists. I'm going to, let me just give you something that I hear from clients a lot of times, and that is Planner. Not everybody in our organization uses Planner, so we don't want to use Planner for action items in these meetings. I get it. Look, Planner is not for everybody. There's a lot of it's got some great simple to use features, and it's got a ton of limitations where if you have to manage complex projects, it just doesn't make any sense at all. However, what I would submit is when you're thinking about running your meetings, in a meeting, do you need a place to track your tasks? You do, right? Everybody needs to be able to say, well, here are the things we agreed we would do in this meeting. Is it easier to have them in one place rather than copy and paste them, right? So remember the last slide I showed you, it showed a different page for every meeting. If every meeting I have a little area called tasks, and every meeting I have to go recreate that area, and now I got to go back and look at all my past meetings to see my list of tasks, is that more helpful than just saying, let's track them all in one place across all of our meetings? Of course, it's easier to have them all in one place. And what if some people benefited by having them in Planner? And by the way, Planner integrates with To Do, so it puts them on your desktop as well. Would that be helpful? And would it even be more helpful if you started to standardize, started the journey of getting people in that? So I say all this because these are the conversations we've even had with ourselves. I myself track these in OneNote for a long time because I'm not a big fan of Planner for a lot of reasons, but I do used to do a lot. And at some point I started realizing, well, wait a minute, this is a better solution than putting them in OneNote anyway. So think about that as if people are committing to doing things in meetings, and if they're not committing to doing things in meetings, I'm not sure why you're having meetings. You want to track tasks somewhere, and you want to be able to come back and report on those. This is a great way to do it. Now, another feature of Teams that not many people know about is something called Teams updates. Teams updates are a great way to ask people for an update, right? So it can prompt someone through a process, hey, do this and this and this and this, or it can just say, hey, can you give me an update on something that's going on? We've actually started using this ourselves and with some of our clients to help them help their people be prepared. So the meeting owner can create the updates and have those automatically sent out to the meeting participants to make sure that they're fully prepared for the meeting. So let me just show you a quick video of a sales team using Teams updates to give you a sample of what that looks like.
Isaiah Langer is a sales rep with Contoso. Each Monday, he's expected to update some things in CRM and in Excel in preparation for the weekly sales meeting. When all the reps do this, sales meetings are much more productive for the entire team. To help ensure that all reps are following a consistent weekly process, Contoso uses Teams updates. Each Monday morning, Isaiah and all the other reps receive an update request with a checklist. Isaiah opens a request. As he works through the process, he checks off each item on the checklist. He also summarizes his work for the last week, what his plans are for the coming week, and what he could use some help on. When Isaiah is done, he clicks Submit.
Pretty simple to set up even. That might look familiar to you if you've ever used something called Microsoft Forms. Kind of the same thing behind it that sets all of that stuff up. I can tell you from experience, getting adoption of something like Dynamics 365 CRM or any CRM solution can be super challenging, right? Because you've got people using that solution who are people first. They've been doing their job for years. They're very connected to people. They're not so enthralled with technology. And getting them to remember to have everything updated, so when that manager wants to run a report in the meeting, that manager can rely on there being good data in the system, that can be really, really challenging. Teams updates are a great way to kind of go, hey, remember, I need you to do these 5 or 10 or however many things before the meeting so we're prepared to have a really good meeting, instead of, oh, wait, I got to go look at my notes somewhere else to give you an update on what happened with that thing. There's another video there I'm going to skip in the interest of time, but that actually shows you how to set up that meeting or how to review that meeting as the team leader. You can go watch that later if you want to. So as a meeting owner, now I think, okay, how do I prepare for this meeting? Well, first of all, Teams updates are part of that too, because not only have I gotten people to submit those, but if you notice, they put some information in there. I can actually go review those updates to see what people said. So if someone needs specific support, if they have a specific question they want to cover, I can go check those things out as a meeting owner and be better prepared for the meeting. I also should have resource links embedded directly into my meeting agenda, wherever that is. So you're not fumbling around trying to find things like, hey, here's this report I always use in CRM. Well, those are almost all URL referenceable reports. Have a link directly in there. You can click that to open up a view or a dashboard or whatever it is. Hey, here's this Excel spreadsheet. Here's this issue list or our tasks. Remember I talked about Planner and To Do. Those are URL referenceable. So now instead of going, oh, let's go open this up and try to navigate to it, no, just click the link to get to that to-do list, that issue list, that planner, so that right in the cadence of the meeting, you can pop that open, check it out, talk about it, add things to it if you need to.
Struggling to leverage Microsoft Enterprise solutions? At C5 Insight, we understand the intersection between technology, business, and people. Contact us to learn more.
Okay, so kind of drilling down into this idea of the processes a little bit more. I'm going to give you 2 perspectives here. First of all, a tale of 2 meeting owners. So these are actually two different business units within a specific client we worked with many years ago. And by the way, these are not real pictures. These were taken from a place called thispersondoesnotexist.com. So don't worry, I'm not trying to call anybody out here. But we've worked with tons and tons of clients trying to help them get the most out of CRM. And never has it been more clear to us what one of the key differences is as this particular engagement. So we're literally around the boardroom meeting table with the heads of the business and the business heads. Within that group of business team leaders, line of business leaders, there was one individual, a new person, the one on the right, who was ambitious, who was organized. And when we talked about things for her small line of business, she kind of said, CRM is the truth for me. I go in there, I get everything I need from it, and I run my meetings with it. I could not run this business as effectively without CRM. We asked the person on the left how his business is doing. He said, we don't trust CRM at all. In fact, I tell everyone they have to rekey stuff into Excel because CRM is just never accurate. It's never good information for us, and I just can't use it to run my meeting. Flash forward about a year and a half, and we're asked to come back into that situation. The gentleman on the left, was no longer with the organization, although he had been running what was a much larger line of business than the woman on the right. That line of business started pointing in the wrong direction. And this other person had the tools and methods and approaches and self-discipline to look at business differently and use digital tools to be a digital leader to run the business better. So it starts with leadership, is my point. And CRM is only as good as you're willing to pursue it, right? That starts with the leadership. If you say, hey, my people don't want to use it, so it's no good, it's going to stay no good forever. But if you're actually going to be committed to it and get the most value out of it, you're going to be one of those digital leaders. And this Harvard Business Review said in their research, organizations who have digital managers and digital leaders, they're growing faster than any other organization. But they're also the exception. Most leaders and managers think, oh, these digital tools like Dynamics and SharePoint and Teams, that's kind of for my people, right? Like, I hope they use that to do their jobs better, but I'm a manager, I'm a leader. Like, I got to talk to people more, and I'm kind of outside of the technology a little bit. This research says, no, in fact, not only are you not outside of the technology, but if you're not using the technology to do your business better, you're actually doing a disservice to your company and everybody in your company. The person on the right got that. The person on the left did not. I guess it depends on which way you're facing, right and left on the slide. But the gal got that. The guy did not get that, right? She was a digital manager. She used digital to make her job more effective. She didn't rely on her team to do it and do what they said to do. Now, on the other side of that coin that we talked about a few slides ago are what about the people inside of the meetings? And this is kind of what people feel like about their meetings, right? Here are some of the things we hear, and we engage heavily with people who engage with people, right? Our mission is people first, people-centric business, helping people to connect better externally with customers and internally with each other. So we talk to a lot of people in sales, marketing, customer service, but also internal connectors like HR, internal comms, and even senior IT people. And what we hear when people start talking about transforming their meetings with technology are things like you see on this page, right? These might sound familiar to you. If you've ever been around one of these projects that requires adoption, that requires people to do things differently, but it's actually not required, right? What I mean by that is if you get a new accounting system, you're required to use it or invoices don't get sent out, right? Adoption is not generally a problem with systems like that. But systems like SharePoint, Teams, Dynamics 365, people can still do most, and in some cases, all of their job without adopting those solutions at all. And so resistance becomes a little bit more challenging. And a lot of organizations say, well, we want it to be so good that people just want to use it, right? What I can tell you is it's possible to make it so good that people should want to use it if they really understand it. But you've got to kind of push and pull them a lot to get them to the point where they realize, I couldn't do my job without this anymore, because people don't like change. It goes against the grain for them. But the reality of all those complaints is, hey, you know what? You're right. I hear you in all that. What we know as an organization is visibility and accountability to each other. This is a really good and healthy thing. It's a good, healthy thing for a healthy organization to have it. We've got to be technically literate. We're living in the digital age. We can't resist learning these solutions. Not only does that hurt our company, it does you, the employee, a disservice because this is being required everywhere, right? So whatever the technology is, it's not necessarily Microsoft, but you've got to be on top of it. And as a team, yes, there's shortcomings. We're going to find those and fix them together, right? Persistence is a part of this. I can give you all these tips today. I'm just scratching the tip of the iceberg. You're going to take these home and do your own thing with them. You're going to uncover your own problems, and you can't go, this doesn't work for us, we give up. This works for everybody, just not the same way. Others need to learn from you. A lot of people say, hey, I'm really good at what I do. I don't need to put it in here. It's not helping me be more effective in my job. Maybe so. But you doing your job this way helps everybody else be more effective in their job. And as a manager and leader, part of the message needs to be, I'm using it too. I'm not asking you to do something I'm not doing. It's incredibly important for me to use this as well. And so you need to be on board with it. All right. Number 3, this idea of accountability, which I referenced earlier. Not everybody likes the term accountability, but accountability is an incredibly important part of any business, right? And in fact, if you have healthy people living in a healthy business, they actually get this and they invite this because if they're accountable to each other in a healthy way, they actually get better at what they do day in and day out. So how do you create better accountability? Well, part of this is just reporting. And Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365, Power BI, these are all amazing tools for pulling the reports out that you need. Remember, your users need to do their job, right? These systems are only going to be as good as the data that goes into them. So users keying things in to the right place at the right time, really important. But also remember, within this universe, you have specialized things too. You can create your own reports. There are reports just for specific areas. For example, if you're in sales, there's an area called the Deal Manager Dashboard. It's a special view of opportunities. I'll show you on the next page. If you're in customer service, there are interactive dashboards where you can actually work more operationally as a customer service person rather than just looking at static information. You can pull stuff out into things like Power BI and Excel. And then you need to think about, well, what are the metrics for our accountability? And there's one I want to call out there at the very bottom. You've probably heard the first two, BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, right? Those are your annual goals. We want to raise revenue by 10% this year, whatever it is. There's KPIs, key performance indicators. And those tend to just be a bunch of things that people think, okay, we can control those a little bit more, and they're more changing day to day. But we have become big fans of something we created because we don't think that there was anyone doing this correctly, and we call them SQAGs, small, quickly attainable goals. And these are incredibly important things to build into your accountability dashboards. Here's the difference. A BHAG is something like, on a very personal side, a BHAG might be, I want to lose some weight, right? Maybe having to put a number on that. I want to lose 20 pounds. Great. But maybe I don't have full control over that, right? A SQAG is, what can I do that I have 100% control over today to make a decision? I'm going to raise my heart rate by, for at least 10 minutes a day, 5 out of the 7 days a week. I can have 100% control over that. I might need to reprioritize some things. I might have to say no to some other things to make that happen. On a sales side, it might be, hey, BHAG, I need you to raise your overall opportunity close rate by 5% this quarter. Okay, maybe I can do that, maybe I can't. But what I can do is make 2 more calls today on average than I've made before, right? I can absolutely make a few more calls, send a few more emails, do some things that I have 100% control of. And at the end of the quarter, if I haven't moved my big number, at least I go, I'm a little stronger, right? I got on that treadmill. I actually made those extra couple of calls a day and I'm sharper for it. Maybe the market changed and I didn't have control over the final number, but at least I actually had as much control as I could over the things that influence that number. That's a SQAG, small, quickly attainable goal. And there's a whole process to getting your team to help dream those up, monitor those, own those, consistently improve them, and find new ones to focus on over time. And then with all those reports, what you're ultimately trying to do is identify issues, right? It's not just, our numbers up, our numbers down. If you're not going to make new decisions based on those numbers, you may as well not look at the numbers. So you look at the numbers to say, what are the issues? Let's identify them and let's solve the issues together. More on that in a couple of slides. So here's a couple of accountability reports, right? So over on the far left there, you can actually see if you're using Dynamics, remember you can create your own reports in Microsoft Excel. So if the reporting tools in Dynamics don't work for you or you're uncomfortable with them and you're comfortable doing things in Excel, don't export stuff from Excel every week before your meeting and then have to redo the report every time. Create the report, upload it to Excel, and now every week when you need the report, you can just go over to that tab and say, give me my Excel template, go down to it, click open. It's fresh. It's refreshed with fresh data, ready for you to do something with it. And if you want to take notes directly in it, that's great. Save it to a shared location in Microsoft Teams with the notes in it. Say, hey, gang, we put the notes in here. Remember to go look at them after the meeting so you know what you're responsible for as a result of that. I referenced some of the other reports, so some of those are over there on the right-hand side of the screen as well. So you can actually run your entire meeting with reports coming out of tools like Dynamics 365 without having to do a whole lot of extra work as a part of it. And then there's this idea that I keep harping on, and that is improvement or issues, right? Improvement is about identifying the biggest problems and solving them together. So every meeting, particularly cadence meetings, should allow time to say, identify if there are any issues. Be able to add issues to the issue list when you identify them, and be able to prioritize those issues together because there will always be more issues than you can actually resolve. So you want to go after the most important issues first. And you can do that a variety of ways, one of which is using a Microsoft list to manage your issues. Everybody should have issue lists for every meeting you do. Here's one simple way to look at that.
Using Microsoft Lists, Allie was able to completely replace the old issue management Excel spreadsheet for Contoso's HR department. Any member of the HR leadership team can access the HR Issues tab on the Meetings channel of the HR leadership team. From here, they can easily add new issues. Or they can edit an existing record. Allie's coworkers can now use a user-friendly form for creating and editing their records. Users can also easily copy and send a link to a record. They can make as many comments as they want to an issue record. Or they can have a conversation in the Teams post area about a record. Back in the issue list, the HR leadership team can use views to sort and filter the list by different criteria. List items are automatically color-coded based on priority, status, or any other value Allie wants. Team members can even vote on issues to prioritize them for discussion during weekly leadership meetings. Working with the issue list using this app, Allie created a Microsoft Lists and Teams, makes HR leadership meetings more strategic, productive, and delivers better follow-up action items.
All right, so that was looking at lists, a Microsoft list for the HR leadership issue list, but that can apply to any meeting you have, whether it's corporate leadership, HR leadership, the sales team meeting, whatever it happens to be. Issue lists are at the heart of it. And I don't know if some of that might have gone past you, but at the very end there, you saw how our hypothetical person, Allie Jameson, could actually rate items. So what you can do with an issue list if you set it up right is you can go, okay, gang, we have all of our issues together. Now, each one of you go vote on which ones you think are most important, 1 to 5 stars for each issue. You sort by that voting, and then you start opening those up in priority order. And as much time as you've got left in the meeting, you spend that time, making decisions, working through the issue list and saying, how are we going to fix this? And once we make those decisions, how do we communicate those? So we're getting a little short on time, so I'm going to move a little more quickly without playing the videos, but I'll mention these real quickly to you. One of the big things that happens with issues is if you identify a problem, what you want is usually not just a one-time fix, right? It's not kind of like, okay, go do this and we're done with that issue forever. Usually issues are something chronic. It's happening again and again. If you're going to solve a chronic issue, what do you need? You need a process. You need a standard operating procedure or SOP. So part of what you want to do as you solve those issues is you want to say, now I need a place to go take the solution we agreed on and document it so that solution is preserved forever. It's not just like in some database and an issue list somewhere, but now we've got a library of our standard operating procedures, and I can easily go find that to reference that in the future. A couple of videos there you can watch on that, or if you're joining us actually for the very next session, we're going to talk about that SOP library in a lot more detail. The idea here is within our meetings, we go from gut level, right? And there's a place for gut level because when you're a small business, sometimes you don't have time to be super analytical, right? You've got to have experience where you can make decisions quickly. But the bigger you get and the more people you have, the less you can afford to have these kinds of conversations, which are, I think, I feel, maybe, and you need to have more of these kind of conversations where you say, what does the customer say? What does the data say? What does the system say? What do the facts say? So we can make a better decision. So when we go back and say, we need to rethink what's going on right now, we can go back to that C-level member of the company and say, here is my business case for why we're suggesting we're going to do what we want to do. So go from gut-based to fact-based to data-based decision-making. Good meetings facilitate that, particularly when you use tools like Dynamics to help you run them. I mentioned communication near the beginning of this. Communication is an incredibly important part of meetings. It's one of the big reasons why the meetings happen in the first place. But communication doesn't end in the meeting. Oftentimes, the meeting results in things you need to communicate to the broader world as a result of the decisions you've made. So you want to share the outcomes, right? I kind of alluded to this earlier, but you never want to make the same decision twice. You don't want to have a meeting, make a decision, and then either you forget you made it and you're making that decision again, or you don't communicate that you made it and someone else is out there trying to solve the same problem at some point in the future. So you want to share the outcomes, both with people who are there because they forget, but also the people who are impacted by it. So set up your meetings in Teams for one thing. If you do this correctly, that means when you set it up in Teams and you record that meeting, that recording gets saved to the team where it was recorded. If you just set it up in Outlook, it's going to get saved to the OneDrive of the person who set up the meeting, and not everybody might have access to that recording that needs it. So use Teams to set up the meetings, allow those recordings to be saved there, and then, by the way, when you have new employees who are part of that team, they can go find that meeting, find that history on their own, and jump right in and start participating immediately. Another great thing to think about these days is using something like Copilot or ChatGPT to summarize your meetings for you, because probably not too many people are going to go listen to that 1 hour recorded meeting to get all the details out of it. But if they can get a quick recap and maybe even click on that recap to say, why don't you play that part of the meeting for me? I want to drill down for more information into it. They're going to do that. Copilot is just becoming available inside of Teams. And frankly, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than nothing at all. ChatGPT is out there and available right now. We actually already use that in a secure environment sometimes to take meeting notes, put them in there and have it spit out a summary for us automatically, which is a lot easier than a human having to type those. And it works pretty well for that if you've done a good job with your notes. Remember to update your standard operating procedures. Have a library, a standard place where you put them so everyone knows where they can get to them. Update those because that's part of the communication process as well. You can share things in SharePoint News. If you don't have an intranet, you probably should. SharePoint News is a great way to say, we just made this decision that everybody needs to know about, right? Or maybe you're just the IT department. We just made a decision that everyone in the IT department needs to know about within the IT department. Have your own place for sharing that kind of news. There are other places to share news in the Microsoft ecosystem. Viva Engage, what used to be known as Yammer, is a great way for sharing kind of a little more pithy, right? Maybe not long form news articles, but quick blurbs, executive corner types of things. Viva Connect is a way to help connect Teams, Viva Engage, and SharePoint all together. So if you're sharing in multiple places, it's easier for people to find it. And Viva Amplify is actually an internal campaign management solution. So you can have one place where you're publishing things and it shows up across the Microsoft 365 footprint. And go share things in related meetings as well, right? So if you make a decision in an executive leadership meeting, then hey, team leaders, bring this to your meetings to share with them as well, right? Make sure you socialize that across every communication place where it needs to be heard, because people need to hear things 2 or 3 times before it sinks in. And again, some videos you can go watch to see more about that. Okay, 7th of 7 things, and that is the action items. I don't have much to show you on this, but remember, when you're making those decisions aren't necessarily fully documented in the scope of the meeting, right? It might be like, okay, we're agreeing, here's some quick bullet points about what we're going to do, but it requires more documentation. It requires some follow-up. It requires defining the SOP and putting it in the library. So use your task manager and assign owners to those tasks. And by the way, part of your agenda for each meeting is, let's go review the open tasks to make sure everyone's moving along on everything they need to be doing. And of course, as I've said before, update your SOPs. So a quick example of all these things working together, talking about pre-meeting. So pre-meeting, before the meeting happens, you want to have everyone submit Teams updates, right? I put in orange kind of the tool that you might use to make these things happen. So you want people to submit updates. You can use Teams updates to do that. You need to run your reports in Dynamics, Power BI. You can even do light reporting directly out of SharePoint and with Excel integration. You need to create your agenda. There's multiple places you can do that. Find the right place for your organization. If you've got an issue list, you want to check that out. You might have some new issues you want to add to it. One of the great things about a centralized issue list, by the way, is you don't have to wait for the meeting before you can add things to the issue list. Anyone can add things to the issue list anytime. Super important, and I'll come back to the reason why in a minute. And then go to your to-do list, make sure you complete your tasks, right? Do your job and follow up on the things that we've made commitments in the previous meeting. Now you're in the meeting. Remember, anyone can add to the issue list within the meeting itself. So, hey, someone shared this metric. This metric isn't what we thought it would be. That's a problem. Someone go add that to the issue list. Let's talk about why we're missing that metric so we can solve that problem in the future. You check in with each other. There needs to be a human element. I'm not a fan of digitizing this too much. You want to just have a human life-on-life check-in. Review status of what's going on around you. That might be in the agenda. People might have put some FYI stuff in there. You might have SharePoint News where you've got some of that going on. You might have metrics like customer satisfaction, wherever that is. But what's the status of the things that this meeting is about? Review a deeper scorecard. We talked about squags. That's the kind of thing you look at there. Look at open and completed tasks. Okay, here's our list of things we do as a result of this meeting. What have we completed in the last week? What's still open? What's past due? Are we overwhelming people? Do we need to take some things off of this list? Prioritize your issues together, and then the rest of the meeting, you spend all your time going through that prioritized issue list saying, we're going to solve as many of those issues as we possibly can, and as you solve them, you have a place to document those things typically an SOP library, but possibly other places. Post-meeting, you've got your SOP library to post new processes to. You've recorded your meeting. It's in Microsoft Teams for people to look at. You've got Copilot to interrogate about the meeting if you need to pull some information out about it. You can post news to SharePoint, Viva Engage. You can put issues back into the issue list. You should post your resolution there. So if people ever say, did we talk about this? Here's where the conversation was if you need more detail. And you've got your to-do list with ownership and accountability of tasks available directly within it. Sounds like a lot, but it's really just a few links from your meeting agenda. Now, here's where it comes full circle. What about ad hoc meeting management? So what I call this is managing meeting madness, because most of the pain people feel in meetings are because those routine meetings aren't done well. They substitute ad hoc meetings for them, and now they're in a world of hurt. So if you're doing routine meetings well, here's what you do. Before any ad hoc meeting, that can be before you call that one coworker to go, hey, what do you think about this? All the way to before you call the whole team together to ask them a question or ask them to think about something. Ask yourself this. Can this be added to the agenda for one of my cadence meetings, right? Hey, I'm a sales guy. I want to talk to my boss about something going on with this client. That can feel urgent, but if you're like, client's not expecting to hear from me until after our next weekly meeting anyway, I can just add it to that meeting agenda. And now I don't need to take up someone's time with an interruptive meeting when I can instead just add it to an agenda and do it in the regular course of doing business. So where and how do I add it to the agenda? I can tell you that alone will cut out something like 40 to 80% of your ad hoc meetings if you get everybody in the habit of doing that. And then consider creating focus time for people to not be in meetings, right? You can use actually Viva Insights from Microsoft to help with that. It can time block your calendar and help you go, this is my time to be focused and to get things done, and only to be interrupted if there's a crisis. Like literally, if you don't talk to me right now, something terrible is going to happen to somebody or to the business itself. If it can wait until after that, then I can meet after that. Huge important thing, because people need focused time. As human beings, what makes us different from machines is we can innovate, we can create, but those processes aren't something you can fit in little 5-minute increments between meetings. You need focused time to get that done. Remember, as in addition to all of this, you do have your other big projects you're doing on your own. We call those shamrocks, right? Since we're all about luck and 4-leaf clover, but it's this idea of I got to do my job. I got to work in the business 80% of the time or more, but I want to be proactive as a human being. That means I want to not just do my thing. I want to help the business advance. I want to help the business improve. Those tend to be big projects that take many hours to get done. And each person might be on a team for 1 or 2 of those any given calendar quarter or so. That's part of what you want to do too. But remember, your cadence meetings, those are not necessarily about this. Your getting work done meetings are different from your improving the business meeting. So think about those in 2 different capacities. My word to those of you who are kind of like me is routine can actually be a really good thing. It can be a huge blessing. And in fact, routine done well can unleash you to do the non-routine things even better. But if you resist routine completely, you'll probably be frustrated across the board with everything you try to do. Last couple of minutes here, the ROI of effective meetings, there actually really is one. I just went for fun and found some public numbers. The average time spent in meetings seems to be about 15%. I find that hard to believe. I think it's higher than that, but that's what someone said the average is. But people report that the average time wasted in those meetings is 45% of that 15%. That's a huge amount. So I did some quick math here and said, let's say we got an organization with 500 people, and we cut that time spent in meetings just by 1%, from 15% to 14%. And let's say we do a really good job of eliminating that waste. So we cut that wasted meeting time from 45% to 40%. We're still wasting 40% of the time that we're in meetings, but we've improved it. And let's say our average full compensation person, their base salary plus 401k and healthcare and all those other things, let's say that comes up to about $75,000. If I am in the current state, I am spending $8.2 million in meetings. But if I go to the future state with those improvements, I've just saved $800,000 across a 500-person company. That's just the quantitative benefit, and I think is a pretty pessimistic one. I think most people can improve far beyond that. But don't forget this huge list of qualitative metrics that actually have a huge bottom line implication for your organization as well, including retaining people longer, having more innovation, less absenteeism, less frustration, higher employee satisfaction. All of those things are also benefits of doing this right. So what I'm saying is essentially, if you get into a good meeting cadence, it's this infinite loop, right? You work together to plan, to try to accomplish something together, to measure it, to identify the issues and the obstacles, to problem solve together as a team, not just pushing top down, and to improve together. If that sounds familiar to you, that's powered by luck again, right? It's connecting at a human level to do things better and better before. Because if we do this right, if we use Dynamics and Microsoft 365 correctly, we don't have to ask these questions anymore that continue to come up during and in between meetings, because we've done a good job of capturing the information, making it available, sharing it within meetings, and moving on to do our jobs so that we can become digital leaders and digital managers. As Harvard Business Review pointed out in their study, the people who've done this well are the people who don't just say, I'm going to do it. They go out and find a partner to help them, a digital coach that can come alongside and help them create a vision for where they're going across all these different things they're going to do digitally. So there's why I find it exciting, right? I think ultimately, if you do this well, good meetings unleash your team. They free your team to be the best thing they can be, to be a higher, best version of themselves. So you honor the cadence. If you leverage technology correctly, meetings actually can be a really cool thing. Now, I caveat all this and say, today I just scratched the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, I was going 100 miles an hour. There are 1,000 more things I could have and should have shared, but we're already at the end of our hour together. So remember, however you approach this, if you want to partner with C5 Insight to help you do this, that's what our clients do. We'd love to help you with that. But if you're on your own doing it, that's fine too. Remember, it's persistence. It's trial and error. Yes, you start with a set of tools. You're going to run into challenges. You've got to keep focused on it to ultimately break through those challenges to get to the other side, because that's how transformation happens. It never happens on its own. It's never so great that everybody just does it on their own. You have to actually encourage them along the road. So if these tools are not actually making your meetings better, they will never actually be transformative business solutions. This is part of it. Do you want to do those other cool things with it? Absolutely. But if you're not using them to take charge of your meetings, you're going to wind up frustrated. So thanks for being with me today. I don't know if there's any questions. We're just about out of time. If you want to stick around for a few minutes, if there are questions, I'll take them. If you want the slides, as always, ping me. There's my contact information. I get you the slides in PDF format with the videos linkable. We are trying to get these published to YouTube, but we're backlogged with a lot of other stuff right now. So bear with us if it's going to take a little while to get this out on YouTube. But if you want the slides, we can get those to you in PDF right away. Please email me rather than putting it in meeting chat if you don't mind, just because I don't always look at the meeting chat, but I will go through my inbox eventually and get something to you. Thanks again for coming, Allison. I turn it over to you.
Jeff, thanks so much. And I'm actually going to leave your slide up here to sing us out because of all this great information I want everybody to have a chance to have. So yes, as a reminder, we here at C5 Insight would love to be part of your organization's digital transformation, your coach, your teammate along that journey. So get in touch with us via c5insight.com, or if you're looking specifically for today's slides, as Jeff mentioned, his email is right there for you. Thanks for joining us today. We hope to see you soon and hope you have a great afternoon.